happen if I started lifting weights? You see, I've been a cyclist my whole life. It's all I've ever done. I reckon I've ridden 250,000 kilometres and done barely anything else. So, plan is a simple one. Add in weight training on top of the usual cycling that I do. And then at the end of 90 days, see what difference it's made to my riding. Now, to be clear, I am not doing this to get buff. That's not my thing. And also, to be fair, the world is not ready for that either. No, what I'm doing is going to see if strength training can actually improve my cycling. The first seed of this little mission was sown when I was training for the Gravel World Championships. I was looking for a shortcut. I needed the muscle endurance, which normally comes from riding your bike for 6 hours a day, when all I have is 6 hours per week. So I tried strength training, and I got sore, and I got tired, so I stopped. Let's call it a false start. But it was when researching a video for GCN about strength training on the bike that I discovered a whole load of research that showed the potential benefits to cycling that can come from weight training. Now, I always thought the jury was very much out on weight training, mainly because every professional cyclist or ex-professional cyclist I'd ever spoken to about the subject had said, oh yeah, I did weight training one off season, and that was me too, right? Back in 2005, I did a few weeks of weight training one off season before binning it off because it made me too tired to ride my bike. And that was it. My opinion was cemented. Surely, if it was worthwhile, everyone would do it. Well, it seems that now everyone is doing it. So I thought I would give it a try too. As I said, there is now a wealth of research on this subject, and one of the key architects of it is the Norwegian professor Bent Rønnested. Now, in his work, he has tended to concentrate on 4 key exercises.
Typically, in our studies, we've used 4 exercises. We have the squat, leg press with 1 foot at a time, hoe raises, and hip flexion.
I'm going to follow his lead by working exclusively on my legs, giving the old arms a little bit of respite. I'm also going to be only using free weights. Now, the main reason for doing that is it's going to give me the flexibility to be able to do strength training at home as well, not have to rely on going to a gym. So hopefully that'll mean it's easier to fit it into my life. I'm thinking 9 o'clock on Sunday night type vibes. Now, in terms of what exercises I'm going to be doing, walking lunges, forward and back, single leg squats, Bulgarian split squats, and step-ups. Doing everything unilaterally, so single-legged, means that I actually don't need quite so many expensive weights. I read some research that said actually that doing a single-leg squat is equivalent to doing a 2-legged squat carrying your own body weight. So there's 75 kilos saved. Now, hopefully, carrying less weight will also mean lower injury risk, and I've been advised to do everything front-loading, so carrying the weight on my front, again, to reduce injury. Now, I'm going to be aiming for 3 sets of between 6 and 10 reps of each exercise twice a week. How was I going to see progression? With the weights, that's easy, right? Can I lift more weight or do more reps? But that is not what's interesting me. I know that over time, if I keep lifting weights, I will be able to lift more of them. But what will it do to my riding? Rather than do a benchmark fitness test now, I can tell you where I'm at because I'm always in exactly the same place. So my zone 2 is about 250 watts, my FTP about 350 watts, and my 5-minute power about 430 watts. What's interesting though is that strength training supposedly doesn't just improve your power output for these durations, but also can influence your cycling efficiency and fatigue resistance as well, which is a key component of your endurance.
When we look into the work economy in the fresh state, it's not very convincing evidence. But when we investigate the work economy in a more fatigued state, after 2 or 3 hours of riding, then it seems to be more clear that the heavy strength training actually can improve the work economy. And when we look at overall performance measurements, like the mean power output for like everything from 5 minutes until 40 minutes, then it seems to be rather clear, actually, when you are doing heavy strength training as an intervention.
So let me run you through the last 3 months then. I did 3 weeks of 2 strength training sessions per week in addition to my normal riding. To begin with, my legs were ruined. The DOMs were really bad, peaking at 36 to 48 hours after a session. And I found riding in this period left me feeling weak and tired.
God, I feel weak and tired.
I could do it, but not anything with intensity. But you know what? It felt pretty good to be doing it, and I worked out the best days for me to do it. Wednesday, so that I was recovered from my Saturday ride with my mates, and then Sunday evening, because it wasn't an issue to commute to work on Monday and Tuesday with sore legs. In fact, that actually felt pretty good. It made me really tired, incredibly hungry. I could not stop eating. After 3 weeks, it was time for a week off strength training, and I ramped up the intensity on the bike, doing 3 interval sessions in the week in addition to my Saturday ride.
The end of quite a high intensity interval training session down here in what can only be described as my dungeon of pain. This is beyond a cave. I've got no benchmark actually against this session. I was doing 40 20s, aiming for about 440 on, 200 off. And I got it done actually, which was great. Legs felt really good. Pretty much the whole way through actually, until the last couple of reps on the final set. So irrespective of whether or not the strength conditioning has been working, I felt good and I enjoyed it. So, thumbs up really, session 2 on my middle week.
At the end of that week, I felt really good. In my head, I felt stronger on the bike.
Tell you what, I'm feeling pretty good.
Just completed my first commute without sore legs for the first time in about 4 weeks. To celebrate, I did 8 30-second max intervals. And it's been a while since I've done those, so maybe I'm just misremembering, but it felt different. It felt like I had more snap, more power in my legs, and my legs didn't hurt for the whole 30 seconds. And then it's almost like I was able to go deeper. So I don't know, and also, unfortunately, I don't have a power meter on the bike I rode home on because I took it off in order to fit a 1x chainring on. But still, the most important thing is it felt really good. So I'm feeling relatively optimistic, albeit currently a little bit sick because that was hard. Back to 3 weeks of strength training then, and I had another breakthrough. The DOMs began to disappear. I didn't feel good on the bike still, but there was no actual muscle soreness. It had taken 9 sessions, and it was a real milestone. The fatigue also wasn't as deep. Then it's not like the wheels came off, but real life crept in. I caught some crappy little virus and it left me feeling absolutely rubbish. Too rubbish to ride my bike, but I did try and do a strength session, which was a mistake. So note to self, don't do that again. I then went straight out to Spain with the rest of the GCN crew and definitely was not going super well. In fact, if I'm honest, I was pretty disappointed. I felt that my threshold power was lower than it had been for years. Back home and back to strength training, the good news was that I'd increased the weights. So on a single leg squat, it was up to 20 kilos from a starting point of 0. Yes, impressive. With the split squats, it was up to 20 kilos from a starting point of 10. Also added in additional sets of single leg step-ups and increased the range of motion for all the exercises. Now, might not sound like massive gains, but remember that the point of this is not lifting weights for the sake of lifting weights. That is not what I was interested in.
We are pretty sure that the type 1 fibers, the slow twitch muscle fibers, are more economical than type 2 muscle fibers, the faster. So one suggestion could be that the strength training increases the strength of the type 1 fibers. So it takes longer time before they are getting fatigued. So they can give a larger contribution to the effort. That could explain the observation that work economy is improved in the more fatigued state, not in the fresh state, if you can prolong the contribution of the type 1 fibers. That's one suggestion. Another one that we typically see with strength training is a change from we have some few very fast fibers, the type 2X fibers, and they can be changed to the type 2A fibers, which is also more economical and durable than the type 2X fibers. And this switch can also be a potential contribution.
Before we get onto the test, first things first, I should say that all of the weights and all of the eating has left me a couple of kilos heavier. And when I say a couple, I actually mean 5. No, it's probably not quite that much. I'm wearing really heavy trousers right now, and also this mic pack pretty much adds 3 kilos at least. More muscle, definitely, which is good, but also a little bit more fat as well. Now, that's not an issue per se, just an observation. And it does mean that even if my power increases in these subsequent tests, my power to weight ratio is unlikely to increase. In fact, it's pretty much guaranteed to be going down. This is it then. I feel a bit nervous, to be honest with you. Quite a lot of hard work has gone into this. It feels like there's quite a bit at stake. I have rested up for today, so I haven't done a strength training session for 10 days or so now. Ahead of me, I've got 3 little tests to do. So I've got a 10-second peak power test, then a 5-minute max test, which is grim, and then a 20-minute test as well. Viewers of our previous FTP video will know that that combination of the 5 and the 20 is like the OG of FTP tests. So my 20-minute power will be a little bit low as a result of the 5 minutes, but it should give me a better indication of my FTP. All of which sounds delightful, doesn't it? So, 3, 2, 1, go! That awesome display yielded a peak power of 1,076 watts and a 10-second average of 1,006 watts. Not a personal best and not really very good, but the best for some years for me. I know it's not particularly impressive, me doing sprint training, but believe it or not, that is all I've got. Right then. 5 minutes next. Pray for me. I don't think I've done one of these for about 7, 8 years. What a plonker. The average for the first 1 minute was 480 watts. The average for the last minute was 408 watts. An average of 430, but I can't help but feeling there was a little more in the tank. My legs still feel pretty bad after that. So just 20 minutes to go now. I'm definitely going to pace this one better. The tricky thing though, was always the problem when I was trying to do this when I was a pro, but finding somewhere on the road to do 20 minutes max is really, really tough. So, I mean, doing it on a trainer is probably better, but then equally, that has its drawbacks too. So, on the road it is. In spite of a very painful 5-minute max test immediately prior to it, I averaged 376 watts, which is roughly a 357 watt FTP. So, have I improved? Well, in the immediate aftermath of my tests, I felt that no, I hadn't, basically, and in part because none of the results were standout performances. I mean, I can't say that my 20-minute power increased by X because it didn't. It was basically the same as always. But over the last couple of weeks since I did those tests, I thought more about it, and I thought more about it holistically as well. And I've subsequently changed my mind. I think that I have actually improved. Firstly, I revisited that 5-minute test that I completely messed up. And I averaged 454 watts, which I was happy with. That was good. And then secondly, the way I felt in the 20-minute test that came straight after that 5-minute max test, remember, was actually really striking. So I was expecting it to be 20 minutes of sheer hell because my legs were ridiculously sore, but I didn't have that. And then the number I got at the end was actually pretty good considering the protocol. So I think that there was a small improvement in those, but it hints at perhaps a bigger change, which for me would be fatigue resistance. Now, I don't feel noticeably fitter, but I'm able, I think, to tolerate more hard work for longer. I've not done any epic rides to test it out, but on rides that would normally leave me a little bit broken, I've been faster at the end than I usually would, a little bit less broken. Interestingly, I've also found that my zone 2 power has increased up from 250 watts to about 265 watts, which is definitely a meaningful change. Now, why my zone 2 has increased but not anything else above it is another question. And what's also interesting and something that I want to explore more is that my max heart rate has got a lot lower. Now, yes, that comes with age, but it's a lot lower. And is that therefore a result of fatigue, perhaps? I don't know, but the fact that it only went up to 171 beats per minute on that 5-minute max test is definitely suppressing my performance, because it got up to 178 beats per minute on the 20-minute, and I would have expected it to be north of 180 on both. Now, of course, none of this is a scientific experiment. It is my experience. We've spoken to the guy that's done the peer-reviewed science, in fact, and he's told us what can happen, and I haven't benefited as much. Which begs a question, I guess, why? Perhaps because I was doing free weights, so a lot of my improvements maybe have come from stability, and actually I'd have been able to lift heavier weights if there was less of a technique component. Or it might be because I'm older than his usual test subjects, and so gains will come a little bit slower. Ultimately though, the most important question, I guess, is whether I'm glad that I've done it. And yeah, knowing what I know now, I am. And will I carry on? Well, yeah, but with a few caveats. So firstly, I'm going to drop down to a maintenance phase of 1 session per week. Now, this is mainly because we're not in winter anymore, so I don't want to feel tired on my bike. I want to be able to go out, ride my bike, and smash it all the time. I also don't really enjoy weight sessions. I can tolerate 1 a week, but I definitely don't want to do 2 a week every week, 52 weeks of the year. Now, I also have a sneaking suspicion that there might be more benefits that become more apparent as the months go on. So if I have developed more muscle mass, I sort of wonder whether there's this sort of conversion time to getting this new muscle primed for cycling as opposed to squatting, basically. And then lastly, the other reason why is that because I'm in my 40s now, I need to start thinking basically about how I'm going to hang on to the little muscle that I've got. So from an aging perspective, I've got to say this is definitely a good plan. And if nothing else, I need to try everything in order to hang on to my younger riding buddies who are currently kicking my ass. Anyway, I would very much like to hear your thoughts on all of this. Do you do weight training, and have you felt a benefit to your cycling, or do you do it for other reasons? Have you tried it and then given up, like seemingly everyone else out there? Get involved in the comments section. Please, I'd be really, really interested to hear your experiences. And we're definitely going to do a follow-up as well with Professor Rønnested in terms of how you can do strength training, perhaps refine what I've been doing to make it more effective. Stay tuned for that one. Why don't you subscribe to GCN and then you won't miss it.